Okay, everyone, I hope yesterday's lesson completing the square went okay. You can do a whole lot more with completing the square, but we're not going to. Just a one-day thing to make sure you understand it. Today we're moving on to our final topic before the test. So this would be the last lesson, and then we'll have a practice test and the actual test. And it is called the quadratic formula and the discriminant. Now, you may possibly have seen this already in Algebra 1 and or Geometry. That should be the case, but you never know. So it is being covered again in Algebra 2. The discriminant, maybe, maybe not. So essentially what we're doing today is we're learning two formulas. And the first formula, the quadratic formula, basically solves any quadratic equation. So that's what we've been working on, is how to solve quadratic equations. We've solved them by factoring. We've solved them with the square root property. We've solved them by completing the square. Now we're going to use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula works on any quadratic equation as long as one side equals 0. And if one side doesn't equal 0, you can just shift the terms around until it does equal 0. So it works on any quadratic equation. The problem is it's complex. There's lots of bits and pieces to it. So the quadratic formula is right here. I'm going to draw a box around it in green. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. In a lot of schools in Algebra 1, you're asked to memorize that. Maybe you're given a test on it. You may have been taught the quadratic formula song, which I am not going to sing to you right now because I have zero singing ability. If you get on YouTube and search quadratic formula song, you will definitely find it. You'll probably find several different versions. A lot of them will be very cringe. So if you enjoy cringe video, definitely do that. Take some time and look at the quadratic formula song on YouTube. It will be an experience. Okay, so I'm not going to talk much more about this right this second. When we get into the actual examples, that's where you'll see the material here. The second formula is called the discriminant. The discriminant formula is b squared minus 4ac. Now that, as you can see, is part of this. So it's a smaller portion of the quadratic formula. And what it is it's a formula that predicts the nature of the solutions without actually finding the solutions. So you can just do a small portion of the bigger formula and it will tell you something about the answers. It won't give you the final answers, but it'll give you a sort of a prediction. And here are the three possible predictions. If the discriminant, the formula, if it works out to be greater than 0, of course greater than 0, you know that means positive, right? So if you get a positive number like 9 or 50 or something like that, that means that there are two real solutions to that equation. Remember, there's real numbers and then there's imaginary numbers. So if the discriminant is greater than 0, it means there's two real solutions. Basically, all that means is you're going to be taking the square root of a positive number. If you take the square root of a positive number, you get a real number. Why are there two real solutions? Well, because when you plus, you get one, and when you minus, you get the other. Plus minus means you have to add and then subtract. So two real solutions. On the other hand, if b squared minus ac, if the discriminant equals 0, instead of being greater than 0, it equals 0, that means there is one real solution. What's up with that? Well, again, if we just do the square root part of this formula and it's 0, what is the square root of 0? Okay, the square root of 0 is 0. Now think about plus or minus. If you got a number here and you add 0 to it or minus 0 from it, are you going to get two different numbers? No, adding 0 and subtracting 0 does the exact same thing. So if the discriminant is 0, you only get one answer, but it is still a real number. The third possibility here, the third scenario, is that the discriminant is less than 0. Of course, less than 0, you know, that means negative. That means if you were going to finish the problem, you'd be square rooting a negative. Well, what happens when you square root a negative? You get I, the imaginary number. And of course, plus I and minus I are going to give you two separate answers. Plus I minus I two separate answers and they're imaginary. So if the discriminant is less than 0, meaning negative, there are two, oops, didn't mean to do that, two imaginary solutions. So those are three scenarios, 1, 2, 3, that the discriminant gives you, predicts for you. The first one, positive, 2 real solutions. The second one, equals 0, 1 real solution. The third one, negative, 2 imaginary solutions. Now, normally you either find the discriminant or you find the, I'm having trouble here. There we go. Either you find the discriminant or you find the actual solutions. Just depends on the instructions that are given in the problem. Let me change. I'm going to go to dark blue here. So the first few exercises, the instructions say solve each equation with the quadratic formula. So we're going to be using that whole big formula right there. And I'm going to write it down on the top of this page. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're going to use that on the first several examples. And you see I've given a lot of space here to work these out. And then when we, oops, I went too far. When we get down to here, we'll just be using the discriminant. So two sets of problems here. Okay, before we begin, what might be helpful is for you to sort of take a little space and label A, B, and C. A equals, B equals, C equals. In this problem, in every problem, A is the number in front of x squared. In this problem, it's a 1. B is the number in front of x, so this is negative 6. And C is the constant. C stands for constant, so that helps. And that's negative 16. So if I'm going to use this formula, I need to do negative b first. So here, let me write this down. X equals, I'm going to draw a big fraction bar, negative b. Well, the b is already negative. So what does that mean if you do negative of a negative? Well, you have two options. You can either write down negative 6, or you can just think that through in your head. What is the fact about two negatives? A negative, it's a positive. So I could change that to a positive 6. Since I already wrote down negative, I'll leave it that way for now. But in my next step, I'm going to change it to a positive. All right, square root of b squared minus 4ac. Now, b squared. If you write down negative 6 squared, you will actually be making a mistake. B squared means that the whole number gets squared, not just the 6. So because b is a negative number, you have to indicate that you're squaring the negative by putting it in parentheses. My tip is just whatever that is, put it in parentheses. Minus 4ac, right? I'm up to this part of the formula, 4ac. 4 times a, that's 4 times 1 times c, that's times negative 16. Again, there's a negative there. I'm putting that in parentheses, just so you know that it's times. All over 2 times a is 1. So just like all formulas, the letters stand for numbers. You have to plug numbers in for those letters. And that's what I did right there. Now we need to work it out. Okay, so how do we work this out? Well, first, negative 6, I'm going to make that a 6. Next, well, there's a few things. It just depends on how good you are at math, at arithmetic. A lot of people, it's a struggle, especially when you're doing large numbers. So here's what I suggest. The radical part, the square root part, just type that all into a calculator. So negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 16. And you get 100. So, I mean, if you really want to sit down and work this out mentally, more power to you. But I say just type this part into a calculator and just live with it. I mean, that's fine. Totally good to do that. So we get 6 plus or minus. Now, what is the square root of 100? Square root of 100 is 10. All over 2. Now it's time to deal with the plus minus. Remember what that means is you can do 6 plus 10 all over 2, or you can do 6 minus 10 all over 2. So you do have to kind of split this up into two problems. You can go back to using a calculator if you want. These are small enough numbers. I don't feel like I need a calculator. 6 plus 10 is 16 divided by 2, which is 8. And then 6 minus 10 is negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So I come up with two answers, negative 2 and 8. Of course, the answer key is probably going to put it in those little brackets, braces. I don't mind if you don't do that. Let me check it. Of course, they wrote the answer in a different order than I did, but that's fine. 8 and negative 2 are the answers. Now, look at some of these answers before I go much further. Lots of radicals. So that's a thing we'll have to deal with. All right, if you didn't quite follow that, or if anything was confusing or I went too fast, you have some options here. Go back in the video, rewatch the steps, or, I'm going to be doing more of these problems. Just follow along on the next one, see if it helps. So, what I suggest, label A, B, and C first. A is going to be 12, B is going to be 9, C is going to be 1. So that's this number, this number, this number. Now the formula. Tell you what, I'm going to rewrite it so I don't have to keep scrolling up and down. So there's a formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Negative b, so that's going to be negative 9 plus or minus the square root of b squared. That's going to be 9 squared. Now I did not put this in parentheses like I did in the last problem because it's not a negative number. But I could still put this in parentheses and it'll work. Minus 4ac, so that's minus 4 times 12 times 1 all over 2 times a, that's 2 times 12. So what does this give me? I can do negative 9. There's nothing to do there. I just copy down negative 9. Now, this part, like I said, if you just do that all in the calculator, it's going to be a lot easier. So 9 squared minus 4 times 12. Well, maybe 4 times 12 times 1, excuse me, is 33. All over 2 times 12. 2 times 12 is 24. Now let's look at the square root of 33. Is 33 a square number? Can I square root 33? Square root 33. Nah, it gives me a decimal. Is 33, why do I keep doing that? The type of number that I'll break down? Well, it is 3 times 11, but you can't break 3 down. You can't break 11 down. There's no square, so no, you can't simplify that. So what do? Well, you're kind of done. I mean, what you could do is you can split it into 9 plus square root of 33 over 24, and then negative 9 minus square root of 33 over 24. But you can't combine. There's no like terms. There's nothing else you can do here. That is just the answer. So number 4, let me check it. Yep, there we go. Okay, notice number 1 is whole numbers, just like number 2. Number 3 is radicals, just like number 4. So the way this worksheet is set up, you can definitely use my examples to help you out as you go. Let's look at number 6 now. And I'll clear off my calculator. Okay, so in this particular problem, A is going to be 5, B is going to be negative 6, C is going to be negative 9. So x equals negative b, and b is already negative, so that's going to turn into positive 6. If you like, you can write down negative 6. We already talked about that. Plus or minus square root negative 6 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 9, all divided by 2a, so that's 2 times 5. So next step, I'm going to type this whole business into my calculator. Parentheses and all. Negative 6 squared. Got to put the 6 in there. Squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 9. 216. All over 2 times 5. 2 times 5, of course, is 10. Now, is 216 a number that I can take the square root of? Nah, it's a decimal. But I bet 216 is the type of square root that I can simplify, right? It's an even number, so that's 2 times 108. That's an even number. That's 2 times 54. Also even. That's 2 times 27. 27 is 3 times 9, which is 3 times 3. So I got a pair of 2's and a pair of 3's. So that turns into 2 squared, 3 squared, and then there's an extra 2 and an extra 3. So the 2 squares I can simplify out. Square root cancels out a square, so that brings out a 2 times 3. The 2 and the 3 that don't have squares are going to stay under the radical. And then I can simplify this into 6 radical 6. So I get 6 plus or minus this, 6 radical 6 all over 10. And that's not quite finished because 6, 6, and 10 are all even numbers. I can reduce this fraction by dividing everything by 2 and get 3 plus or minus 3 radical 6 over 5. So my final answer should be 3 plus 3 radical 6 over 5 and 3 minus 3 radical 6 over 5. Let me scroll down and check the answer on that one. And there it is. Okay, so number 6 is kind of the same as number 4, except for all of this, which I'm sure you don't enjoy, but it's going to come up every once in a while. Didn't come up on number 1, didn't come up on number 2, but yeah, number 6 you had to simplify the radical. All right, let's look at number 8. More of the same. A is 3, B is 6, C is 11. So, negative 6 plus or minus the square root 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 11 all over 2 times 3. So I just plugged in A, B, C. That's negative 6 plus or minus the square root of, let me use a calculator, 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 11. Negative 96. All over 2 times 3, that's 6. Now we have 2 issues going on here. Just like the last one, we've got a radical that probably is going to simplify. So I'm going to do that factor tree. But I'm also square rooting a negative. You know what that means, right? We're going to have imaginary answers. Just file that away in the back of your brain for a minute. Let's focus on the number part first, 96. 96 is what? 2 times 48? Yeah, 48. 48 is 2 times 24. That's 2 times 12. That's 2 times 6. And that's 2 times 3. So I got a pair of 2's. I have another pair of 2's. So that's going to be 2 squared, 2 squared. Then I have an extra 2 and an extra 3. If you can read that, wow, it's getting sloppy. All right, the 2 squares simplify out, so I can bring out 1, 2, and then another 2. The 2 and the 3 stay under the radical bar, so this becomes 4 radical 6. So what do I have here? Negative 6 plus or minus 4i radical 6. So what did I do? I took this answer and then combined it with the fact that I was square rooting a negative and put I in my answer. All over 6. And then I need to highlight, let me change colors on the highlighter. 6, 4, and 6 are all even numbers, so you can reduce this by 2, just like on the last problem. Notice I'm not reducing this one. You can only reduce non-radicals with other non-radicals. So you don't reduce the radical number. So this works out to be what? Negative 3 plus or minus 4 divided by 2 is 2i squared of 6. All over 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So that's negative 3 plus 2i radical 6 over 3, and negative 3 minus 2i radical 6 over 3. Those had better be the 2 final answers. Oops, wrong problem. Wrong problem. Good grief. All right, there it is. Negative 3 plus 2i radical 6 over 3. Yep, there they are. All right, so number 8 is about as bad as these get. If you can understand number 8, you should be able to do number 7. If you're having problems, this is where you definitely got to reach out and let me know so that I can help you with this. All right, now we're moving into the next set of problems, which is find the discriminant. If you could do this, you can do this no problem, because remember, the discriminant is just this part of the formula. So that's all we're going to do here, and then we're going to jump to our, or not jump, but draw our conclusion. So in this problem, let's see, I don't have a lot of room here, so I'm just going to do this. A, B, and C, right? A is negative 3, B is 10, C is also a negative 3. So negative 10 squared minus 4 times negative 3 times negative 3. Again, I'm going to use my calculator over here. Negative 10 squared minus 4 times negative 3 times negative 3. So here the discriminant is 64. Find the discriminant. There it is. That's our discriminant. Then state the number and type of solutions. So 64. What were our 3 scenarios? Positive, 0, and negative. Well, 64 is a positive number. Therefore, there are 2 real solutions. So I have to come down here. And so besides writing 64, I have to write that there are 2 real solutions. Let me check number 10, make sure I did that right. 64, 2 real solutions. So that's it. You don't have to finish it out and do that whole process. Number 12. So A is going to be 1, B is going to be 6, C is going to be 9. The discriminant then is B squared minus 4AC. 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. Do this on the calculator. 6 squared minus 4, oops, not times 4, minus 4 times 1 times 9. This works out to equal 0. So the discriminant is 0. What does that mean? If the discriminant equals 0, there's 1 real solution. Right there, 1 real solution. So let me come down here. If we were to solve this, there would be 1 real solution. Number 12, 0, 1 real solution. Number 14, A, B, C. By the way, as you do your homework, don't forget to show your work. All right, B squared minus 4AC. Now this is important. You have to put the negative 4 in parentheses. So negative 4 squared times 4 times 6 times 3. You know what? Just for kicks, I'm going to do this wrong on the calculator. Negative 4 squared minus 4 times 6 times 3. I get negative 88. Let me check number 14. Is the answer negative 88? No, it is not. So let me go back to Desmos and actually do it correctly. Now, negative 56. Now we do have it correct. So those parentheses make a big difference. What does it mean when there's a negative discriminant? If it's negative, there are 2 imaginary solutions. So 2 imaginary solutions. Check the answer for number 14, and there it is. Negative 56, 2 imaginary solutions. All right, let's do 16 and we're done. A, B, C. 6 squared minus 4 times negative 4 times 10. 6 squared minus 4 times negative 4 times 10 is 196. All right, I'm not going to scroll back up. This is a positive number. What does positive mean? Positive means there's going to be 2 real solutions. check number 16, and there it is, 196, 2 real solutions. Okay, that is the entire lesson. Work hard. Don't be afraid to get on YouTube and search other teachers or other people explaining this if you didn't really follow what I did. It's pretty standard stuff. You should find lots of help online if you need it. You can always email me or drop a comment, and I will try to help you as quickly as I can. All right, have a great rest of the day.